My name is Jasmine, and for as long as I can remember, I believed that being part of a family meant tolerating pain quietly. The echoes of laughter that filled our house felt hollow, and the warmth of affection was often conditional. I was taught to stay calm, to never argue, and to forgive without question, all in the hope that one day things would get better. But the truth is, silence doesn't heal. It simply teaches those around you how far they can push without consequences. As a child, I learned very early that love in our house came wrapped in expectations. My brother Kyle was the golden child, confident, loud, and endlessly praised. He was the sun, and I was the shadow, expected to adjust, to understand, to disappear. If Kyle raised his voice, it was called leadership. If I showed emotion, it was weakness. My parents never said they favored him, yet every decision whispered their preference. Kyle could do no wrong, while I felt like an invisible ghost, floating through the halls of our home, unseen and unheard. Growing up, I learned to keep my head down. When Kyle succeeded, the house erupted in celebration. My attempts at anything new were brushed aside with indifference. When he stumbled, excuses were poured out like honey. When I faltered, it became yet another lesson about my inadequacies. By the time I reached adulthood, this cycle of silence and self-doubt was so ingrained that I didn't even question it anymore. I married young, partly out of love for my husband, but mostly as an escape from the relentless comparisons and judgment. For a while it worked, but then, like a house of cards, my marriage crumbled, and I found myself alone once more, this time with a precious daughter named Autumn to protect. Being a single mother was like walking a tightrope. I worked long hours, counted every dollar, and strived to give Autumn a sense of stability. She was my light, gentle and curious, a reflection of my own childhood self. My parents didn't offer much support, but they had a wealth of opinions. Every phone call morphed into comparisons. Kyle's tech startup, his new car, his success, while my struggles were dismissed as personal failures. Still, when they suggested a family reunion at Yellowstone, I agreed, telling myself it was for Autumn. She deserved to know her family, and perhaps I wanted to believe that things would be different now that we were adults. From the moment we arrived at the reunion, I felt that familiar tension creeping back. Kyle dominated every conversation, his booming voice drowning out others, while my parents laughed at his jokes, ignoring my attempts to share. Autumn clung to me, her eyes wide, trying to smile, while the other kids barely acknowledged her. I could see the confusion in her gaze, the unasked question lingering in the air. Why didn't anyone want to play with her? I forced myself to believe it was just awkwardness, that children needed time, while a knot twisted tighter in my stomach. The morning it happened, we sat at breakfast, the room alive with noise, plates clinking, voices overlapping. Autumn was beside me, softly singing to herself, a simple melody of innocence. But then, without warning, Kyle slammed his hand on the table. The sound silenced the room like a thunderclap. He stood up, walked over, and before I could process the scene unfolding, he slapped my daughter across the face. The crack echoed like a gunshot, and Autumn screamed. My heart stopped. Chaos erupted around me as Kyle called her useless, then turned to me sneering. She takes after her mother. I grabbed Autumn, shaking, my body numb, and looked at my parents, pleading for some form of support. Instead, my mother smirked, as if enjoying the spectacle, while my father sank his gaze into his plate, a cowardly silence wrapping around us. In that moment, something inside me shattered completely. As I held my daughter, trembling, I noticed my brother-in-law Sean standing nearby, his camera still recording, intent on creating a family documentary. He met my gaze, nodding slightly, the unspoken understanding passing between us. In a whirlwind, I packed our bags, not seeking permission or explanation. I just left, leaving behind the echoes of our past. Autumn cried softly in the car, gripping my hand tightly, as if she feared I would disappear. I promised her, through my own tears, that I wasn't going anywhere. That night I made calls I should have years ago, contacting a therapist friend, a lawyer who specialized in child abuse cases. Autumn was evaluated by a pediatric psychologist, who confirmed what I had long suspected: trauma, fear, loss of safety. Sean sent me the footage, every damning second, clear and undeniable. He then revealed a truth that twisted my stomach. Kyle had done this before, to another child, at another family gathering. Everyone had stayed silent, chosen comfort over protection. The legal process was agonizingly slow. Kyle denied everything, and my parents defended him, urging me to think of the family, to avoid embarrassment. It was then that I finally understood. To them, my daughter's pain was less important than Kyle's reputation. No more. I refused to stay quiet. With professional guidance, I shared a blurred version of the video online. No names, no accusations, just the raw truth. It spread like wildfire. People began to recognize the pattern. Kyle's company fired him due to a morality clause, and his wife filed for divorce, quietly sending money to cover Autumn's therapy. My parents stopped calling. I didn't block them. I simply stopped responding. The nightmares became less frequent, and she started singing again, her voice louder, bolder this time. I discovered strength I didn't know I possessed, focusing on my work, finally believing that I deserved better. I was promoted, not out of sympathy, but because I had stopped doubting myself. I learned that family doesn't mean unlimited access to your life. Love doesn't equate to silence, and protecting your child is never an overreaction. I was raised to endure pain quietly, but my daughter will be raised knowing this one truth. No one is allowed to hurt her, not even family.